Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. It's Tuesday, time to talk about some new releases coming out this Friday, March 22nd. There's almost 500 albums coming out this week. I got 12 on my list for today. A bunch of links down below. Make sure you check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together a week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. Like I said in the intro, there's almost 500 albums coming out this week. I'm only talking about 12 on the show today, so if there's something I don't talk about, make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to picking up. And like always, if you're unable to find any of these in your local brick and mortar stores, I'll put links down below in the comment section. They should all be available online. One of the releases I'm really looking forward to this week is this reissue of Jar of Flies by Allison Chains. This was released back in 1994. It was their third EP behind We Die Young and Sap, which have both been released as record store day releases over the last couple of years. It's going to run you about $24 online. There were a couple of different versions of this. There was a tri-colored version available only through Allison Chains' website that sold out pretty quick. There was also this really cool, clear vinyl version that had dead flies encased in it. I think they pressed 100 copies of it. It was going for like $125, I think, on Allison Chains' website. That, of course, sold out pretty quick also. And actually, if you go on eBay, it's selling for like thousands of dollars on there. And then there was the standard black version. So the black version is what you're going to be able to find in your local record stores. I will say it's actually sold out in a lot of places. Last time I looked, it was sold out on Amazon. Sold out at a couple of my local record stores also. I had to hunt around online to find a place to pre-order this from. Because I was actually surprised they didn't do what they did when they reissued Dirt, where there was a Amazon exclusive. I think there's also a Target exclusive of that. There's multiple versions of that to go around. They didn't do the same thing with this album, which I was really surprised by. It was a gigantic album when it was released. It's actually the first EP to ever debut at number one on the Billboard 200. Sold over 140,000 copies the first week when it was released. It was nominated for a couple of Grammy Awards. And, like I said, it was released back in 1994. It was out of print until finally it got reissued in 2010. There's two different versions of it that got reissued in 2010. There was a standard version by itself, which was just Australian pressing, I think. And then Music on Vinyl also reissued it with Sap, which was the big release that has been available for a while. And both of those, if you want to find them online, they're going to go for several $100s. So it's great to see this one get reissued. I would like to see them reissue the Music on Vinyl version where it's like combined with Sap, but I understand that Sap just got reissued for a record store day a couple of years ago, so I understand why they're doing it as just a standalone release, but I think it's going to be a big album. Of course, I think it's going to be kind of hard to find also because it's such an incredible album. One of my favorite things that Allison Chains ever released. So you got that coming out this week, and then you got the Cure Paris getting reissued. This was released back in 1993. So this was recorded live during the Wish tour. This was actually recorded. There was two live albums that were released over that tour. There was Paris, which was released in '93. I think it was like October of '93, and like a couple months before that, they also released Show. So you get two live shows from that tour, but they're very different shows. Where Show is just like a lot of the big hits, a lot of the big singles from The Cure. Paris is actually a lot of the deeper cuts, and it's a very different vibe musically between the two shows. If you're a Cure fan, I highly recommend grabbing both of them because, like I said, they're very different shows. There's really no overlap between the two, and if you're kind of a casual fan of the band, Show is probably the better way to go. But if you really love a lot of the stuff that the band has released over the years, like I said, a lot of really great deep cuts is on this Paris Show. And it's on 2 LPs. It's newly remastered. I think Robert Smith did all the remastering on it. It's one I'm looking forward to. And like I said, I think the difference between Paris and Show, the lineups, I think is why this album kind of underperformed a little bit. When compared to what Show did. But they're both, like I said, they're both great shows, great concerts. I'm really looking forward to this release. You get the new album from Gary Clark Jr. coming out this week. This is JPEG Raw. It's his fourth studio album. It's going to run you about $40 online. Gary Clark Jr., in my opinion, is one of the most underrated blues musicians of his generation. Some really great stuff. I've loved everything that I've heard from him so far. Sounds like this album's going to be a little bit more experimental than the stuff he's done before. It was largely recorded during the lockdowns in 2020, so he had a lot of time to kind of really dig into what he was doing. if you're unfamiliar with Gary, he's got blues. He mixes it together with, there's some jazz in there, there's some hip hop in there, some rock in there, some really cool stuff that he's done throughout his career. Like I said, if you're unfamiliar with this stuff, I highly recommend going back and at least checking out those first 3 albums. I'm definitely gonna stream that new one this week. He's also got George Clinton and Stevie Wonder both make appearances on there also. So really cool to see that one getting released. Can't wait to check that out this week. And then you also got the new album from Waxahatchee coming out this week. This is Tiger's Blood. It's their 6th studio album. It's going to run you about $25 online. So if you're unfamiliar with Waxahatchee, started out as a solo project from singer-songwriter Katie Crutchfield. I haven't heard a lot of stuff from them over their first 5 albums. I've heard some songs. Probably maybe out of the total 5 albums, I probably heard maybe 20 or 25 songs. I like a lot of stuff I've heard so far. Like I said, this is another one where I'm going to definitely check this one out this week. It's the indie rock mixed with some country. It's got some folk in there. Really interesting stuff if you're unfamiliar with Waxahatchee, what they've been doing. The next 2 albums are actually ones I had a hard time finding somewhere to pre-order these from. The first one I was able to find a pre-order from a store out in California. The second one I had to pre-order from Europe to get a copy of it. Both of these sold out pretty quick in my area. The first one is Misfits Collection, released in 1986. It was their first greatest hits compilation. It's going to run you about $33 online. This is a RSD Essentials release. It's on glow-in-the-dark vinyl, which maybe that's why it's harder to find. I actually already have a copy of this on black vinyl, but I love the Misfits. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. I've long considered them one of the most influential punk bands of the late 70s, early 80s. Not only would they influence punk music, they would influence heavy metal and all this other stuff that would come after the band broke up. But this album it's 20 tracks, all put together by Glenn Danzig himself. There's early singles on here. There's songs off of Walk Among Us on here. There's songs off of Earth AD, and then Legacy Brutality, were all the albums that they pulled songs off of to put this together. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to this. I know Glow in the Dark vinyl doesn't have the best reputation, but like I said, I'm still going to grab a copy of it. Still looking forward to that release this week. And then the second album is Wham! Make It Big, released back in 1984. It was Wham's second studio album. It's going to run about $27 online. So there's a black version that's pretty much available everywhere. Well, there's a very limited white version that sold out pretty quick here in the United States. Like I said, that was the white copy is what I pre-ordered from Europe. This is an album where George and Andrew finally had a lot more of the say creatively on their album, and I think it really came through on this album too. I'm not a big Wham fan, but this is the one album I've been waiting for a long time to get reissued. It's the first time this has been reissued. I think since 1991 was the last time this got reissued, and they're actually really reissuing it with the U.S. cover. I know there's multiple covers of this album when it was first released. Like I said, this album and that Misfits album, I had a hard time tracking down copies to pre-order, but they're both going to be available this week. The next 2 albums are really cool ones. I think they're kind of flying under the radar, though. I think they're both going to be great releases this week. The first one is Alice Coltrane, the Carnegie Hall concert. It's going to run you about $40 online. It is a 2 LP release. So this was it was recorded back in 71. It was never released until 2018, though. And when it got released in 2018, it was only 1 track that was released off it. I think Africa was the only track that they released off there. This is a really cool one, though. I think this is going to be a big release. This is the first time they're releasing, I think it's 4 songs total in this performance that is being released through Impulse. And this is the first in a series of records that Impulse and Verve are doing this year to celebrate the music career of Alice Coltrane. This is one I've been looking forward to this one ever since it was first announced. Got a great lineup on here, though. You got Pharoah Sanders on here. You got Archie Shepp, Jimmy Garrison, Cecil McBee. Like I said, really cool one. Really looking forward to grabbing that one this week. And the second one is Buddy Holly, the Chirping Crickets. This was released back in 57. It was their debut album. It's going to run you about $21 online. This was one of the most important records in rock and roll history. Really helped change rock music in the late part of the 50s. I think Rolling Stone magazine, when they released their list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, I think it was like 415th or 420th that they had listed on there. This was the album that had Oh Boy on there. This is the album that had That'll Be the Day on there. Like I said, really big tracks. This is the album that really kind of made Buddy Holly a household name. The next two albums could not be any more different from each other, but the first one was Butthole Surfers, Psychic, Powerless, Another Man's Sack. This was released back in 1984. It was their debut studio album. It's going to run you about $23 online. So Butthole Surfers released a self-titled EP in 83 through Alternative Tentacles, which is the label started by Jello Biafra. And then after they released that EP, they moved on to Touch and Go Records, which is who they released this album through. And they had this, of course, Butthole Surfers is known for that hardcore punk sound, but with this album, they incorporated more like psychedelic rock in there. There's some country elements in this album also. Very different, and very different than some the what was on that first EP, and really kind of would push them through the rest of their career. It's an interesting album. If you haven't listened to it in a long time, at least stream it and check it out if you're a hardcore punk fan. It's actually a pretty good release, even though I'm not a big fan of Butthole Surfers. So you got that one coming out this week, and then you got the reissue of Electric Youth by Debbie Gibson. Like I said, completely different than Butthole Surfers. But Electric Youth was released in 89. It was Debbie Gibson's second studio album. So this is a Friday music release. So it's going to run you about $38 online. It's going to be on translucent gold vinyl. So when this album came out, I think I was 10 when this album came out, and everyone kind of looked at this album as kind of like this just bubblegum pop rock album, and I don't think people really understood the talent of Debbie Gibson. Like, she was 19 years old when this album came out, and she wrote every song on this album. She co-produced the album. It was a gigantic album. It would hit #1 on the Billboard 200. It would go on to sell over 4 million copies worldwide. So like I said, it was a big album. I don't think people really saw how talented Debbie Gibson really was because of the style of music it was. But this is a good album. I won't pick up a copy of it this week. I actually bought the original pressing of this. My wife found a used copy for like $10 or $15 a couple of years back. So I've already got a copy of it. But it's an album that's at least worth going back and revisiting, I think. The next album is actually a pretty cool covers album that's getting released this week. This is Zac Brown Band From the Road Volume 1 covers. It's going to run you about $35 online. It's a 2 LP release. It's going to be on blue vinyl. It's going to be like the standard release. There was a blue and black Cornetto vinyl, which Cornetto is like the stripe vinyl. It's available through the band's website. I think it's still available also. But this is a new series that the band is doing to celebrate all the live performances of the band over the years. I think there's 12 or 13 tracks on here. It was released on streaming services back in November if you want to go and stream it and check it out. But it's all taken from, I think it's 2012 to 2023. It's like an 11-year span that all these tracks are taken from. I've streamed about half the album so far. They actually do a really good job with it. I'm not a big country fan at all, but it's one that I'm at least considering grabbing this week, just because, like I said, I'm not a huge covers fan. I'm also not a huge country fan, but like I said, they do a really good job with these covers, so I'm looking forward to that one. And then the last album on my list is the self-titled debut album from Whittaker. Came out back in 1988. It's going to run you about $38 online. It's a metallic silver vinyl it's coming out on. This is the exact same reissue that Friday Music released last year. This album, after it got pressed in 88, I don't think it got pressed again until 2020. If you want to grab a copy of the original pressing, it would go for several $100 online. But since 2020, I think this is the 4th time this thing's been reissued. So it's been reissued a bunch of times over the last couple of years. Should be pretty readily available. There's 2 big songs off this one. I think Headed for a Heartache and 17 were like the big tracks. It's an okay album. I think Whittaker would go on to do a little bit better albums after this one, but it's at least one that's worth checking out this week, I think. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to grabbing this week. I think there's some really cool stuff coming out this week. Like I said, I already got pre-orders for that Jar of Flies, for Paris, for that Misfits album, for Wham. Got a couple other ones I got on my maybe list for this week. But let me know what you guys are looking forward to. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.